How we doing? Everything looking
good?
good?
Mic check. Everything
Cool.
good?
Camera angles looking good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, I think we get started. I know you both go way back, but I tell KJ this all the time, and I'm super excited to have you here because I tell him I got the first chance to meet you. We were sitting next to each other at dinner in San Antonio, and I remember leaving that place, and I was talking with KJ. I'm like, damn, this guy is one of the coolest guys I've ever talked to in my life. Like, I just want to hang out with him, and I think that that's exactly what you exude. You pull people in, you have people gravitate towards you. You've done a little bit of everything in the industry. You've founded companies, built some, worked at some of the largest firms that are out there. And we're excited to tell and learn about your story. So thanks for coming on, Travis.
Thank you. You have a perfect voice for this, by the way, too. I
Oh,
wanted to tell you
man.
that earlier. It's like made for doing podcasts and radio. So I'm excited to talk to you, KJ, today.
Well, he does, and he's right. You are one of the funnest person, most accomplished people across technology, across, I would say, so many different things. Mm-hmm. So
Thank you.
I'm not sure where you want to start, but you're originally from Ohio, right?
Yeah, I'm from Ohio.
I'm seeing the jersey. You might want to talk about that a little bit when we get into it.
So, yeah, I born outside of Dayton. So I'm not a
Okay.
sincere Columbus person. A lot of people think I'm from one or the other, but Piqua, Ohio, Piqua. It's not, but where I grew up was on I-75 and just north of the I-75, I-70 interchange, which is just 90% trucks and 10% cars. So I grew up around trucking. Never thought of that really as a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm an Ohio boy. I've that's where my family still lives today. They're all in Columbus now. So my family's mainly migrated to Columbus, Ohio. But I grew up, some of my first memories with my dad were watching Bengals games and Reds games, and yes, Ohio State Buckeyes games, which I'm sure 99% of people will hate on that. That's fine. But yeah, I we still go back there a lot. I still really enjoy my family, a lot of my friends. That's just kind of where my roots are. I don't know if or when I'll live there again, but we spend a lot of time back there.
Yeah. You go back to the Icky Shuffle, or?
Dude, the Icky Shuffle was amazing. James Brooke, Icky
Icky
Woods,
Woods.
Boomer
Icky Woods.
Esiason. They went to the Super Bowl. That was, yeah, I definitely know how to do the Icky Shuffle. For
All
sure.
right.
It's probably the inventor
I
of
think
the
I can
TD
kinda do it.
celebration, right? Or at least
It was
one of the
the
first
best.
people credited with doing the TD celebrations.
Yeah.
He had a great couple of years, then he was gone. But I think that was a good imprint on football, right? And like kind of legitimized celebrating it for TDs by dancing.
Ton of fun, yeah.
100%. And so you were just outside of Dayton, right?
Yeah,
Is that where you're
just north of Dayton, yeah.
And Ohio State fan, went to Miami of Ohio,
Correct.
didn't go to Dayton.
No.
What kind of drove that path?
So I did not want to be anywhere near Ohio or my family. I was like, I love my family, but lived in a very overprotective, somewhat controlling home. And so I wanted to go to Cornell, and I got into Cornell with this whole process to go there. I was going to go to ag school. And my mom and dad were like, congratulations, how are you going to pay for it? I was like, oh, wow, thanks. Did not honestly see that coming. And so I kind of at the end was like, well, I don't want to go to Ohio State. I don't want to go to these other schools around. My mom went to UD. My dad went to Wittenberg. He played basketball there. And I went to Oxford's campus one time, and it was just done. It was like, okay, I'm going to go to Miami. And so it was an in-state program. My parents were willing to pay for the first year or two of tuition. Mm-hmm. And, you know, my mom and dad still kind of regret when my dad's passed. My mom's like, that we should have let you go. It's on us. But it was a wild application process because it involved in-person interviews. It was a really cool thing for me to go through. Mm-hmm. But I'm really grateful that I went to Miami. It was the best 6.5 years of my life.
6.5 years. Did you change your major a couple of times?
I took a degree. There was a 5-year degree. And I took a 9-month internship in the middle of it. And so my sophomore year, I went to work at a paper mill in Hamilton, Ohio, which made me change my major after that to be less, it was still keeping the engineering core, but put the business on top of it. So it was a lot of work. There was a lot of working. I think I worked in 3 factories during my college career, mainly in the paper industry. And then I decided to take a business core on top of it. So I had an engineering and a management degree. And then towards the end, which is why I ended up in logistics, I thought I was graduating. Too long of a story to go into.
We got time.
Yeah.
I didn't take a class that didn't exist any longer. Process that?
Yeah.
I didn't take a class that had been wiped off the curriculum. And so most of the students had taken that class. I took the same class to replace it 2 weeks before walking. They're like, nah, you're not going to graduate. So I had to go back to school for a whole other semester to take 3 credit hours, which is what led me to apply for second shift jobs. I was like, I'm done. I need to get out of college. I don't mind living in Oxford, living the college lifestyle. That was amazing. And so I found a a company called NYK Logistics. I had no idea what that meant. It was formerly Greater South Traffic, or GST, which you probably have to be 55 years or older to know what I'm talking about with GST. And I got a job offer to become their second shift operations manager out of college, straight into freight. And so I remember my first week there, they're like, it's going to take you 6 months before you're even effective. Don't worry about it. We have to teach you a whole different language, like the word accessorial, right out of college. And so it was this process where when I showed up, there were about 80 people there, which is outside of it was about 30 minutes north of downtown, come about an hour from Oxford, maybe 45 minutes. And when I left, at 5 o'clock, I was on person. Went from 80 people to me. And I was an intermodal marketing company. So I was dispatching. This is when I learned about my first EDI 204, because I was the EDI dispatching 300 to 400 boxes a night, or containers a night, mainly for Panasonic and Sony out of Southern California. I learned about 214s because I'd run the tracking and tracing report. And I had to make sure that the billing went over so they could send the 210s out the next day. And this is like, I'm still technically in college, right? I haven't walked, but I have to graduate. But then at night, the phone calls started coming in because they also had a brokerage and they had a massive LTL reseller program. So they didn't train me for any of those things, right?
Welcome
it was
to
like
logistics.
track and trace, dispatch, billing, go through this whole process. And so, you're getting calls from truck drivers, and then calls from LTL carriers. And that was wild. I figured it out.
Yeah.
And so it was a really cool, and then within a few months I got Employee of the Year because it clicked for me. It was fun, and I liked being there by myself. It was really cool to live a college lifestyle, to not show up to work till 3 o'clock, get off at 11. This is back when I got really good at golf. I lived with the guy that we played golf. We played 18 holes probably 4 or 5 days a week before work. I mean, it was a wonderful life, right? It was amazing. I had my own office. It was amazing. And then, as life goes, a new guy got hired to run the office. And, you haven't worked here long enough to have an office. Anyway, my freedom was somewhat restricted, and if you know me, that's probably the thing that matters the most to me is a little bit of freedom. But, because you probably asked this, I'll give you the kind of just fast forward of why I left. I remember, as I had more time, I remember looking at the system, and I remember seeing the commission checks that the 1099 reps were getting. I didn't know what a freight agent was. They were freight agents, right? They were agents for NYK Logistics. I'm like, they're making like $1,000 a load on these things, 600, 700. I'm like, they're not that smart of people. I don't know freight, but I know I can do whatever it is they're doing.
I can make $1,000 a load.
And I got this call one night from a guy in Chandler, Arizona. His name was Sean Betts. Started talking, and this is long before days of I may have had a cell phone, maybe. This was in 2000, so I think I had my first cell phone, but this is all landline, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, we should start. After a few weeks of talking, we convinced ourselves to start our own thing. I didn't even know what to call it. I didn't know what a freight brokerage was. I didn't know what a freight agent was. I knew that we were an intermodal marketing company. That's all I really knew. And so he convinced me. I didn't want to leave, but I gave my company, I've been there for like a year and a half, an ultimatum to give me this job in Raleigh, to move me up. And I'm this amazing mentor. I do want to call it this man because I think when I look back at my career, this guy named Craig Manuel, who's from Cincinnati, was by far the most influential because he took me on sales calls. He knew I was bored. He knew I wanted to learn more. And he taught me the industry. We went door to door. We sold. We went to Honda, Panasonic, all these companies that were in Western Ohio up and down I-75 and along I-70. So that was really my first foray into selling. And it was weird. It's like it was a weird enterprise, sales and suits. And, then I still had to go back and work. We would sell all morning and all day. Then I still had to go run second shift. But it was amazing that Craig put that much time and energy into me. And he really set my career off. But I gave the team an ultimatum, moved me, and they didn't want to move me. And they're like, okay, cool, bye. And so I decided to drive out to Chandler in the summer of, I don't know if you have it on, 2002, Chandler, Arizona, back in 2002. Yeah. I think it was 2002. Yep. And I got to Aspen, and I got nervous. And my friends had been running a bed and breakfast, this crappy little Airbnb, which is now kind of nice, called the Christmas Inn. And we were staying there the last two summers, summer 2000, summer 2001, and now the summer of 2002, we pretty much set up shop. And I got to Aspen, I was like, I don't know this guy. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I got my Pontiac Bonneville, big hoopty. It was awesome. And I was like, I don't know if I can do it. I was scared, to be very honest with you, to start my own company. And I did it anyway. And I remember leaving, and I remember driving through downtown Phoenix on I-17, north and south, going through. And in July, and it was 112 degrees at night. I didn't understand that yet. I'd never been there. And I met this guy named Sean Betts, and it was weird. It's just from the moment. I mean, so what we did is we sold door to door in Arizona in the summer in suits, and he had a convertible with no air conditioning, and the top didn't go up. And so we basically were getting tile. It was during a huge boom, housing boom in 2002. It was crazy in Arizona, right? The housing market was taking off. And I found a guy that did backhauls between LA and Phoenix, and we started moving truckload on 45-foot high cube containers. We're just crushing it, just like doing a great job. And then we got some boxcar movements. We were moving freight out of Coolidge, Arizona up in the Northeast and doing transloading, and all of a sudden, these checks that I used to see for $1,000 a load, they started coming in. And
this
it was
like
Red
Hawk?
This is not even on my resume. It's not even there. It's called Creative Logistics Solutions. I'll come to why I'll put it on there. It was CLS. But I'm in Chandler, and I'm lonely, and I'm living with him and his girlfriend and his brother. That's how you did it back then.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a gross living situation, and I wasn't that happy. And he and I agreed to split amicably, but this was the best deal ever. He's like, I want to keep the website and the marketing and the email and the names, and you can have all the customers and all the carriers. I was like, hell
perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, this sounds great.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And I drove my Pontiac Bonneville back to Columbus, Ohio. And I went and we started Red Hawk Global because Miami had changed from the Redskins to the Red Hawks while I was there. Again, 50-year-olds know who the Miami Redskins were. And we started then I knew was a freight agency, right? I kind of knew what we were doing.
Who was we?
A guy named Erich DeBoo. He was the guy that I went to Miami with. It was all Miami guys. And so Erich had some capital. I did not, right? He had a house. I did not.
You had the customers.
He had an office. I did not. And I had a Rolodex.
Mm-hmm.
And so the pivotal moment was about a year into it. We were hustling, maybe not even a year into it. I'll never forget the day. It's in the basement. That's where we worked. I was poor. I joked. I had a pot of coffee for breakfast, a pot of coffee for lunch. I'm not joking. That was true. And then Eric should buy pizza for dinner. But I got this phone call from Sean, and he's like panicking. He's at a payphone. His cell phone's been turned off, and he's willing to sell me his largest customer. Like, they're this big customer. They're out of Phoenix. They're going to be so good for you. And I'm like, well, how much do you want for this account? He's like, my cell phone bill is like $238. So I put him on mute. I was like, Eric, do you want to buy Sean's account? We really didn't have a lot of customers at that point, just the ones we brought over, and it was hard to manage them. And the guy's name was Mike Leto. His phone number was 1-800-503-2202. Never forget it. Logistics Freight Systems on University Drive down by the airport. And we bought the account, and that kind of but like introducing Mike and Vito. Andrew likes to claim he was first. It was actually Mike and Vito because I remember the day that I got called. I think he was just coming in off of the ship.
Yeah.
And that became a massive customer for us. So
interesting. There's one thing I want to backtrack for just 1 second, because I think something that you were highlighting in that journey, right? I mean, that's an entrepreneurial journey in and of itself that we can fill this whole time with. But there was an interesting moment when you were in Aspen and you're driving out and you're like, what the heck am I doing? And I think that, right, I mean, KJ, you've obviously founded businesses and you have as well. I think that that's probably a very common thing, especially first-time entrepreneurs' experience of just, holy shit, do I make the jump and actually do it?
Doubt.
Yeah, exactly. You fear.
It was fear.
Yeah. So, but then was there something where you're just like, I need to do it? Was there something that pushed you to actually make you say, yes, I'm going to make that drive out to Arizona and get this done?
There's always that moment where, like, when in order for a human to change, they say the cost of staying the same has to be more than the cost of changing. Mm-hmm. And I think I was more fearful to not do it. I had already packed up my bags. I already told everybody I was leaving. I didn't really have another backup plan.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, Aspen in the summer is really nice.
It's a hard place to be.
Really nice. And sleeping on the couch in a bed and breakfast and having one of my best friends cooking for me every morning was really nice.
Yeah.
But I felt that I needed to do it. I had gotten the agreement to become an agent for NYK Logistics, right? Mm-hmm. That was a necessary part of this. And it was just, you gotta kind of have to have that F it moment. You're just like, F it. I gotta do it. But even through the moment where I met him and we met in this parking lot and I told you it was weird and it was still weird, I still did it, right? Yeah. And it was, I don't know I remember the last night I was there because I really had delayed it. I was just hanging out, and we went to, there was like a festival, a little music hippie folk concert or something, and
Some fun.
And I said, I got to go tomorrow. You know,
Yeah.
I just have to say goodbye to all these people that, you know, I'd come close with over the last 3 summers, and that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to have that moment where, I call it now, Coleman, it's like you don't have to know where you're going to land. You
Yeah.
have to make the decision to jump.
Yeah.
And that's what it was.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so then fast forwarding again back
Yeah.
to Red Hawk, you got this new account. How did things progress from there? Was it just a complete game changer? What was that?
So I try to use math because I love math. That's kind of my thing. We were talking about numbers earlier today,
Yeah.
right?
You nailed all.
And I created an algorithm, this would have been in 2002, 2003, that created instant pricing for partial truckloads because I didn't know what a Azar Light was. I knew that we had one in MyCarrier Logistics. We'll come to that, but I didn't know how it worked. I just know I kept getting all these emails and phone calls for I need a rate from here to here. I didn't know that they were an LTL company that were using my partial truckload rates of $500 that I was giving them, and they were selling them for $1,900 because it was cheaper than a pup loader. I had no idea what they were doing on the back end.
Yeah.
And so I became their partial truckload. We became a heavily partial truckload brokerage, moving a lot of partial truckload freight. And so then Erich actually got an account out of Denver. I can't remember the name of the customer. I don't want to say it wrong, so I won't say it. I think I remember the name of the customer, but it was shipping loads of steel. We did not make a lot of money on these loads. It's like $50 a load, but it was a high revenue account. And then there was also a GST office here in Denver that we became working with. And so it kind of, because we were moving all of this under someone else's MC number. We were an agent. But we became doing all of the work. And it was like, we're only making whatever it was, 40%, 60%, whatever it was, right? And we kind of got to this point where it wasn't worth it. And then the night it all changed, maybe I should have probably researched this. There was a power outage, I think in 2004, when the whole East Coast went dark. It was like, I don't know if you guys, anybody remembers this?
I was West Coast at that point. I was
2003,
as far away as
2004, I'm
possible.
sure we can. And we got a phone inbound because we hit, okay, so let me backtrack. This was, so we're like, how do we advertise? I didn't know about the whole brokerage model, calling customers. We didn't know that. We didn't know what to get accounts. So we went out and we bought 150 websites. OhioFlatbedTrucking.com, MinnesotaReefer.com. We bought every state, every mode, and every trucking.com. This is back before the search engines were like too terribly intelligent.
Yeah.
And we just blasted the internet with every single type of e-commerce search that you could have to try to get inbound.
Yeah.
And it worked. It wasn't the best freight, clearly, but it worked. And so we started moving some more freight, a lot of one-time shippers, a lot of household goods. I'm not gonna lie, it was mainly all household goods. But if you go online, back in those days, if you went online to get a moving company quote and you had us do it with a 53-foot rail car in it, it was like 1/10 the price.
Yep.
We got
Oh, yeah.
a lot of business. I don't think it was technically.
There's a
some
gray area.
rules with household goods.
Yeah,
There's
gray
a
area. Yeah.
I didn't know about. But we got a phone call from Meijer the night of the power outage. Meijer, the grocery store out west. I don't know if, exactly. You
familiar,
have
yeah.
no idea who that
Oh,
is.
yeah.
MEIJER, if you're from the East
Oh, yeah.
Coast, like they were like big before Walmart was big on the East Coast. And they had 24 stores that had no power. And they had 24 generators on chassis in Chicago. And I made some magic happen. I'm just going to leave it at that. It was a lot of phone calls. It was a lot of work, and maybe moving on some loads on an MC number that we had. Anyway, it set us off. We made more money that night than we'd made in the history of our company by leaps and bounds. And my dad helped me wire some money. We just kind of moved some things around. Nothing was done illegally. I would just call it creatively.
Yeah.
Maybe double brokering is the term, right? But it was not illegal, and it set us off because all of a sudden, we had this like big piece of business, and we had all this cash, and so then we hired some people, and then by that point we were in the middle of transitioning to our own MC number. We built my first TMS called TransLink because I didn't know that was a commodity. I didn't know you could get a Mercury gate. I didn't know. Like, I had a DAT subscription, and we built TransLink. We brought a third partner in named Mike Tobin, who I also went to school with. And so we built a TMS, which is also our accounting system, also our quoting system. We hired Nick Chastain as our first ever employee, which Nick. And we grew the business. It was like a rocket ship. It took off. And, you think that would be a happy rocket ship. But no, what happened was it got nasty. Like, I learned at that age that friends and business don't necessarily mix.
You and your partner starting to have some struggles.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it.
Okay.
With success came, don't know what to call it, man. It was the hardest thing I've been through as a human at that point. Just it was almost, I felt like it was Spygate to some extent. It was really weird. I'm over it. I moved past everything in life, but it was hard because it was like a baby. And I won't use the metaphors I used to. They're kind of aggressive and politically. Anyway, I felt there was a loss, so I sold it to them. I couldn't. It was a nasty split up.
Yeah.
And they offered me a lot more over time, and I didn't take. I just wanted to cut it. It was like a cord that if I couldn't run the company that I started, I didn't want anything to do with it.
I mean, you went from scrappy, no technology, no customers, to figuring it all out, to growth, and all of a sudden, there's infighting, there's jealousies, and there's some insecurities.
Power control, yeah. And so, in hindsight, I did what I did. There's no point in looking back and saying to do it differently. I love starting the business. Clearly, if I owned the brokerage I started in 2002, it might be a little bit different day for me. But, and so I took a check, one-time payout, and I just left the country. Bye.
Really?
What's the first country you went to?
Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I wanted two things at that point in my life. I wanted to learn how to speak Spanish, and I wanted to learn how to surf. Those were like very important to me after this, 3-4 years of just grinding. I think do you guys ever get those things in the mail? Where it's like your Social Security, it shows you all the income you made over time. Have you guys ever seen these?
Yeah.
It was like 3 years. The first 3 years, it was like $37,000, right? And like in the 3 years, but then we finally had a good year, and it's like, okay. I just wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. And so I wanted to learn how to surf, and I wanted to learn how to speak Spanish. So I went to a school called Escuela del Mundo, which was in Jaco, which is probably not the best place in Costa Rica these days, but I loved it. And I learned how to surf, and I learned how to speak Spanish. We went to Colombia. We traveled around. I met a kid from Canada. Got in trouble.
As you do when you're traveling abroad, right?
As I do when I travel abroad, or as one does when they travel abroad.
Yeah, there you go.
And it was awesome. And then I got a phone call. I got an email at a computer at a computer lab. What do they call this? Internet cafe.
There we go. Yeah,
an internet cafe in Jaco. It was my buddy David, who was one of my best friends at Miami, who was born and raised in Barcelona, and I had been out there and visited him over a few years over time. And I always told him, if you ever get a spot in your flat, because it's a sick flat downtown Barcelona, email me. So I get an email in Costa Rica. I'm cruising.
Yeah.
I'm like, sweet. I'm going to Barcelona.
Yeah.
So I just packed up and moved to Barcelona for the summer. Lived there for 4 or 5 months. Went to another school to learn Spanish, but I learned that no one in Barcelona speaks Spanish. So it's Catalan and English, right?
Yep.
And it was amazing. It was like some of the best memories I'll have, because I was writing, I was reading. We would, smoke cigarettes on the patio like everybody did, and then go for a run.
Yeah. Yep.
It was like every day. It was like and we cooked. It was the Spanish lifestyle. We had siesta every day after we had this amazing lunch, and I got to know his friends and was part of that culture. And that's been really a close, like my life out in Barcelona, and I still stay very close to David, and our kids are similar ages now, and they've hung out multiple times, and they don't speak the same language at all still to this day, and it's been really cool. And then, I ran out of money.
I was going to ask you, money has to run out between Costa Rica and Barcelona. I didn't hear anything about a new startup, working at a job, you weren't waitressing.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
I thought about it. That was probably something, if I could have gone and done bartending, because they were hiring all these English-speaking bartenders on the Las Ramblas in Barcelona, and I just
didn't want to do it.
Yeah. So that's super interesting, especially as we get a little bit later on in your career. I feel like some of the things that you've done make sense after hearing some of this, which is great. And I feel like taking a little bit of a reset is always an important thing, but ran out of money.
Yeah,
and
100%.
then you ended up at one of the largest logistics companies in the world.
I tried to budget. Again, I hadn't really spent a lot of time out of the country yet, and I forgot about the exchange rate. That's what got me. It was, this is the euro-dollar rate. So I had it all planned, and then I had to come home. And so I started looking for jobs, and I had a high expectation of what I thought the value was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I went to the open job market, and wasn't quite there yet. And so I did some interviewing, ended up getting in front of, it was right before DHL acquired Excel. It was EXEL, which a lot of people don't know who that is. And I got a job offer from a guy named Gary Munn, who just kind of believed in me to do network optimization and transportation design for their integrated logistics department at Excel, which is now DHL Supply Chain, DHL, right? And I went from working for one of the smallest logistics companies in the world to one of the largest. That's exactly right.
Yeah. What was that transition like, especially coming off of time where you weren't in the corporate world or being an entrepreneur going into a large organization
It was
like that?
scarier than starting my own company.
Really?
For sure.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Cubes. Just like dress clothes and cubes and I won't say time clocks. That's just a metaphor where I was a salaried employee. But yeah, dude, it was weird, man. Like humbling.
Yeah.
Very humbling. Felt like I'd failed. Clearly, I felt like I'd failed.
Yeah,
So
if we're retracing your path, I mean, you started as an office in college to selling tile after spending time in Aspen to coming back, starting your own company to Costa Rica to Barcelona to all of a sudden you're in cubes.
yep, 100%.
But you had to learn some lot of stuff to do optimization.
So it changed my career.
Did it?
Had I not been at DHL, I wouldn't be where I am today because, you know, the supply chain design stuff was cool and using optimization models and doing all the studies that no one ever wanted to implement. That was fine. But like, it was amazing that side of supply chain that I got exposed to. But then my boss knew I was bored. He's such a good dude. Gary was awesome. He's awesome. And he's like, hey, there's this opportunity that the retail sector has open. So Excel had like retail, automotive, chem, industrial, and tech, were their main sectors serving those verticals, right? And I had this opportunity to go down to Groveport, Ohio to do this secretive startup, which was a long time ago, was for, this would have been, 2005, would have been for Toys R Us and Babies R Us. It was the largest single-sourced e-commerce facility that Excel had in its network. It was the fully mechanized 3 towers, pick-pack operation, full. I mean, it was everything. And so I volunteered for not having, I didn't know this. It was a special project. My boss like, you're just going to go and work in Groveport. And it ended up being, there were 6 of us there on Labor Day when we started. And by Thanksgiving, I had 1,800 people on my shift.
Jeez.
Sorry, on outbound. 1,800 people on outbound on my department. And we had to build it from the ground up. We wrote all the SOPs. This is the first time I ever integrated with an AS400. We used Manhattan PKMS. We installed it in AS400 as their WMS software, trained hundreds, if not thousands of people, and made all the Christmas dreams come true that year. I mean, it was really for every because back then Toys R Us, Babies R Us was huge, right? It was before the private equity purchase. Yep. They were everything, and so. But the thing was, it didn't work. It didn't work very well, and so. It was a 3-shift operation, 24/7, 7 days a week, you know, and we're there 7 days a week. And I'm working with people who've been in this industry for a long time. I'm like the new guy. They treated me incredibly well. I will say that I don't think I could have ever expected to have a better corporate experience than I did there. The men and women that I worked with were just world class. I think it's a world class operation still to this day, based in what their headquarters is in Westerville, Ohio, you know, which is just outside of Columbus, just north of Columbus. And so I learned about running waves, which, if you know what a wave is, great. If you're not, I'm not going to go into it. I'm learning about the whole picking and packing operation. I'm learning about outbound and manifesting and printing, and I got to learn about an EDI 856, and I got to learn about all the inner workings of how supply chain actually moves before it ever gets to a truck.
Yep.
I didn't see the trucks were like, that was the once I got loaded on the truck, I had no visibility to it, right? Everything that we did was really getting and optimizing inside of the warehouse. And so after that, KJ, I went back into the design department for a little while, but I think they kind of knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. And so basically for the next year or so, I kind of bounced around. I would go out and we would look at really messed up facilities that needed some help with this guy named James Irway, who I think you probably know.
I do know James.
Irway. James is probably the second or third largest, but behind Andrew, Mike, and Vito, and David Dibble. I kind of forgot. David Dibble was part of CLS. So my first or second week in Arizona, Sean Betts and I drove up to Page, Arizona to meet David Dibble because he joined Creative Logistics Solutions. So David Dibble sold for us as an agent at Red Hawk Global. Totally forgot to bring that up.
You brought him over later.
Yeah, I brought him over. Yeah. He went from CLS.
Double D's.
Dibble's, you know, he's a legend in his own ways. Love David. And then so James Irway and I are now cube mates. We sat next to each other in cubes, and 20 feet down the hallway was Jim Hyde.
No way.
I've known Jim longer than any of these guys. It's crazy. Jim was at Excel Direct, which we'll come back into in a minute. Yeah. I was in ILD. So James and I at this point are traveling around, going to the most messed up facilities in the network, trying to give these GMs a blueprint on how to fix things. They didn't want to fix anything. Those kids told them how to fix, right? Some of them did. We spent a lot of time with JCPenney and Honeywell and a bunch of these sites. And then it kind of came up to the point where I needed to decide. They're like, hey, you're working for every sector. You're doing everything. You kind of need to decide the direction you want to go in. And I took the path that everyone thought I was crazy, which was Excel Direct, which was known as the redheaded stepchild of DHL. It's now Ryder Final Mile. And so I built, and that's when Jim and I worked hand in hand. We launched this facility, hired a couple hundred kids out of college out of Ohio State in Grandview, Ohio, which is outside of downtown, and we built the delivery service center. And it was a very fun but challenging project. We insourced all of their operations from their DCs. So they had a hub in every NFL city. They had hundreds of agents across the country. We brought it all into one building. And so Jim was in charge of their agent network. I was in charge of the hub network. And we brought in all scheduling, all routing, all customer service, all the client services, where I met Andrew Haynes. Andrew Haynes worked out there. And that was probably the most fun I've ever had. All young, energetic college, recent college grads, hired them all in. A bunch of them are still in the freight industry. Worked with Jim and Andrew and had this amazing run for a couple years where we brought in, it was awesome. I mean, it was a lot of fun, and we became the brain, really the customer-facing agent for all the major furniture companies, Williams-Sonoma, Restoration Hardware, Crate and Barrel, Pottery Barn, JCPenney. We ran that whole operation. So that's when I got to touch Final Mile, and that was when we built and implemented a custom piece of software called iDirect, which was built on the AS400.
AS400, man.
So every college kid that I'm training is coming in and learning click commands, headsets, no mouse, power strokes, all the different things that we implemented yet another AS400. So I've been doing Excel for 5 years and have implemented 2 or 3 or 4 AS400s at this point, thinking it was crazy, but just being like, this must be the way that it is.
This is what they did back then.
Guess what? Yeah, back then, I know.
Yeah, there's not, I feel like, especially nowadays, there's not a lot of people that know AS400 or have heard of it.
Yeah, and I don't know how to build or design it, but I certainly was a super user on many different platforms of it. But, it was, I will tell you, there's that expression, this is just a fact, this isn't something I'm necessarily proud of, but not that I'm proud of, my friends around me all the time. I was kind of the poster boy at one point, where I literally, a friend of mine tricked me into coming in to say, I need you to do me a favor. And they took some photos of me, which maybe I'll surface for you, maybe I won't, about saving more money. I became the face of DHL supply chain retirement strategy with Fidelity. And so my face was in every freaking warehouse across the country on this poster. So everywhere I went, like, oh, it's the retirement guy. For like a year, it was really, really nice. So, but this guy named Dan McNutt and Patrick Kelleher, who's now a big-time CEO in the space, they were really awesome in giving me the ability to go out and do things that I didn't have any background for. I didn't have any qualifications. And Dan and Patrick were in charge of the retail sector and really let me go out and work for them. And I think they were a little disappointed that I didn't go work for them, but I went to Excel Direct, and then new leader came in.
Yeah.
Freedoms were taken away.
Yep.
And my entrepreneurial, and Andrew Leto could finally afford me, at least in my own head. I probably should have left the year before that, but Andrew had been calling and calling and calling for years. And so I needed to wind down that chapter of my life because I went back into corporate. I left the operations center, went back up to Westerville. I was in account management and business development. It's just a little too sleepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm hearing, I'm kind of seeing through a thread of your career is being put in positions where you really have no experience and thriving, succeeding because you have voracious appetite for learning.
Yes.
And then also along the way, keeping contact with certain people that are going to come back together. And I think some of that's going to even speed up as we get some of the next stories we're talking about. But it's kind of wild where you're naming some of these names, and I forgot James Irwin. I forgot about Double D. I forgot about some of these guys. And some of the people you brought over to GlobalTranz later on were somebody like Nick Chastain I still talk to.
Sure.
So it's just kind of interesting how you kind of collect really good people that can be useful, not just as a friend, but also in business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is wild when I think I showed you that list of BGSA this year. I mean, when I go to my oldest list of current friends, industry contacts, Mike and Andrew are clearly, actually David Dibble, I've known longer than Mike and Andrew, and then Jim Hyde are all in the same year. I met all of them, and it's maybe the same 2 or 3 years, I guess, because I met Jim in 2005. And it's crazy how all of those people have ended up impacting my career on a macro level. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The nicest LinkedIn review I ever saw was David Dibble saying something about you. Do you recall it?
David,
I'm not going to verbatim.
I mean, I'd forgotten about that. I forgot people did David's in I think it was something about his command of the English.
Yeah, I don't believe I have the command of the English language. My words would come. Yeah.
It's funny.
It was nice. That was back when those meant something.
They used to really mean something.
They did.
I forgot.
Yeah, you like to listen
about
to
that.
Yeah.
Look at you, KJ. Thank you.
Yeah.
That makes me. Thank you. That was nice.
Yeah.
It was really nice that he wrote that.
Yeah.
We got to write him a nice review after this on LinkedIn,
sure.
just to pump the tires a
Feel
little bit.
accepted.
Yeah, exactly. You're transitioning then into GlobalTranz. I will let both of you take the lion's share of this, at least because that's obviously where your paths cross. But you said that Mike was calling you and calling you and calling you.
Andrew was calling me and
Excuse me,
calling me.
Andrew was calling you.
Yep.
How did he come across you? What made him
All right,
want you on the team?
So when Andrew came off the boat, literally, in the Navy, he tells this story.
And you
Not
bought
about-
them as a customer.
I
Vito
bought the
and Michael.
customer very close around the time I started working with Mike and Andrew. I love telling this story. I hope Mike doesn't get mad at me. I remember when I went out and visited them, because Mike will make fun of me too, but they're on typewriters, smoking cigarettes, on forklifts. I'm like, whoa, how are these guys running a business? It was crazy. Vito, Mike, and Andrew all running around because they had a warehouse. They were a freight forwarder. They had like next shipment out. And they're like, who is this? They call me Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. That's what they like to describe me as, right? So I'll just throw that out. But Andrew told this story at Plug and Play. There was a Plug and Play Ventures meeting in Phoenix a few weeks ago, and he kind of told the story about how he came off the boat and he saw the way that they were doing it. And he wanted to bring technology and automation to the quoting process. And so, Andrew, I remember he called me. I've been working with all three of them. LFS, Logistics Freight Systems, is our largest customer by far. And he called me and he's like, if I leave my dad and my brother, will you give me credit? I was like, yeah, probably for 10 shipments. Yeah. That was all I could, because I was still an agent for NYK Logistics at the time. So I had to vouch for him to get him credit, personal level, right? Personal vouching to get him credit. We gave him credit, and as soon as he moved his first 10 shipments, he then went and got a raise with C.H. Robinson and used me as a credit reference. I'm like, oh my God. So, but I worked with Andrew a lot. Andrew and I became more like, what's the word? Just, we talked a lot.
Yeah.
We did business together. I moved a lot of his truckload for him while he was working into that. But he built, back then it was called Intermove Global. It was called Blue Sun Logistics, and then I called my company Red Hawk Global. He got jealous. I'm going to call my company Intermove Global, and then that became GlobalTranz. And so I was just, consulting with him. We were friends, right? He had a business partner, and they had a cool business, and we had a cool business. And then I sold mine, and I left for 5 years, and Intermove Global became GlobalTranz. So now fast forward from 2005 to 2010. GlobalTranz is like a real deal at that point, right? Mm-hmm. And so he recruited me, and I was like, cool, I need to go on a long weekend to Maui. Let's take a quick little respite, and I'll come and work at GlobalTranz.
Yeah, I started there in 2007.
Yes.
And I had never heard of you. And next thing you know, he shows up, right? He shows up, and everyone's like, hey, this is Travis. I think he's going to be VP of XYZ. You could
That's
probably,
right.
is that probably the real story?
Yep.
You can fill it out on the employment agreement, whatever you want on there.
Yep.
And so the first thing I did is ask Michael and Andrew. I said, so what is he exactly going to do here? And Michael says, well, he's super talented. He can do anything. And I was thinking to myself, well, don't get into the agent program. That's my one thing that I know about logistics.
Which I had no idea.
Well, I didn't know about a tariff. I didn't know about Zarlice. I didn't know anything about any of these type of things. I just knew that I could get people to sell GlobalTranz, this suite of products, and their pricing. And then you came in, and what was your initial role when you were there?
I have
back
to
it
call
up?
myself out because they want me to bring this up. I was supposed to start on a certain day. Whenever that day was, it came and passed.
Oh, no. No call, no show?
No.
Okay.
I remember calling Andrew from the top of Haleakala, the volcano of Maui, and being like, I'm not coming to work tomorrow. He's like, when are you coming? I was like, probably another week or so. And that went on for a little while. So when I did show up on day one, they made it very intentional, not have a computer, not have a desk, not have anything set up for me, which kind of is my punishment, which I more than deserved, right? And they brought me in. I think Andrew just had a gut, he wanted me to work with them. To start to run truckload back with like Ryan Abbott. Remember the old little side office when you had Truck Jeff Jackson?
Yep. We brought him over from CH.
Yeah, that's right. I ended up spending more of my time, which was great, on this project to get a truckload module in GlobalNet, which was our back-end software. You remember GlobalNet?
Yeah.
And so I worked with those guys to build a truckload module. That's when I hired Andrew Haynes to come over. And we built a temporary version of GlobalNet. Not temporary, it was like what we used for that. During that time, GlobalTranz was having some system issues with invoicing and accounting. I'll just leave it like that. Yep. Right? Fair way to put it. Mm-hmm. And I remember after an executive meeting, they asked me to take over as in charge of technology, and I was like, no, not a chance, because I saw
it was
fire.
Yeah,
it was a fire. But then I was like, I don't think if somebody doesn't put this fire out, I don't know if we'll all still be here in a few more months, right? Because it got pretty bad. It got pretty contentious there for a while.
It was. I just kept bringing in 7 or 8 agents every other week.
Because the company was performing so well, they just hadn't figured out the tech part yet, right?
Yeah.
It was just everything else was cruising. The agent model, I mean, like with what Book Out to build the carriers, what you had set up with the agents, we had this incredible flywheel between Mike's tariffs and Mike's design, the way that he managed the LTL carriers, which nobody else was doing at that time. I really give Mike a lot of credit for why GlobalTranz was so successful. We put the carriers first, right? I mean, like shippers were third in our model. It was wild. I was like, what am I working? The carriers are first, the agents are second, the customers are last.
It worked.
But that's what that model was.
Yeah.
And so they asked me again. I said no. And they asked me the third time. I was like, well, I better try it. And
not gonna ask you
to your point, not a lot of qualifications per se. I had overseen built TMS, back in 2003, and I knew how it worked, but I did not know how to fix it. And so I spent 18 months working all day during the day at the office, and then going home and working with Abhishek and the team in India at night. And a year and a half later, things looked very different. It was very different.
We live in the same complex. I think
you and I lived, I don't know, 100 yards apart.
There was a back stairwell, and I think you had a corner unit. It was a little bit larger because you took one over from somebody else. I think it was Mike.
Apartment, yeah.
Mike, and then we were right above.
Yeah, it was very close.
Yeah, because I was living in Tempe, and Andrew said, hey, we got this new office, because we used to drive up to the 70. Like all the way up, I think it's I-70. It was
17.
I-17, yeah, way up there. It was a warehouse space.
I remember that.
So then when he got the place over in High Street, he's like, why don't you just live up here? I was like, that sounds pretty great.
And so I'll never forget the call. I was like, we need a mobile app. Like, these agents have no idea what they're doing. From a sales perspective, we need to gamify this. And so Abhishek's like, well, you should talk to Brant. It's like, why would I talk to Brant? He works for KJ. He's an agent recruiter. He's like, no. Brant's like a really talented designer. So I remember when Abhishek's like, go and reach out to Brant. And I was like, why?
We went to college
recruiting,
together.
Right?
He's a talented artist.
I didn't know he was an artist. I had no idea about that. Yeah. So Brant and I brainstormed this one night at, I think we had just moved out of the city north, we were over Toscana, across the street.
Yeah, right across the street.
On MobileNet, this concept of like basically fantasy football for agents. It was live, earnings, sales, bookings, margins, competition. The agents loved it, right? It became this like competitive app where everyone that did sales, whether you're a 1099 or W-2, got to see the real-time activity. That was the first net new thing I'd ever built, besides the TMS back in 2002, which I didn't really even count that. And so MobileNet was a huge success. And then Andrew's like, all right, cool. Let's we have this team in India. We're doing great in India. Why don't you go find a nearshore team, an onshore team, someone in the US, so that we can manage our GlobalNet, our legacy technology in India, while we build I want you to build a whole new system for me. And so, I went out, long story shortlisted the company in Boulder, company in Austin. I think I told the story earlier today. The company from Austin disqualified themselves, which is what qualified Amadeus Consulting out of Boulder. And we were spending a lot of money. I'll just put it that way. The numbers are not important right now. To build this new age version of Command Center. First thing we built was called Quote Book Manage. Very simple. For LTL agents to quote book and manage their LTL customers. Customers had carrierrate.com. They had, Quote Book Manage. And then we went all in on Command Center, which was the first TMS that was not a TMS, right?
It looked good too.
It looked really good. And I think the agents, and remember, we were selling to agents. It took me a while to figure that out, Coleman. He knew that.
Yeah.
I argued with him all the time. I was like, why are you in business development, KJ? You don't sell anything. I couldn't understand why KJ.
I sold a lot of dreams.
I know you did, but KJ was selling, and later Eric Lenz, who came in after you left, they sold the dream to the agents to come in and build their business around GlobalTranz. And so I was like, once that clicked for me, I understood the importance of the TMS becoming a sales tool, not just an operations tool. And so we modeled our principles a lot back. This is 2011, on what Apple did. A lot of icons, a lot of iconic, like a lot of colors, a lot of things that were way easier to gather mass amounts of data from in a matter of seconds than a table and a grid and a column, right? We really wanted to create things that were storytelling. We had a lot that we did through maps, a lot that we did through visualization, and then tying that into a real-time kind of gamified app.
Yeah.
It created a perfect storm for the agent recruiting team to go out and build and sell those. And then Mike Leto put together probably one of the greatest and fastest growing truckload brokerages ever, from 0 to, I don't know, 400 million. It was a unbelievable. No one heard of GlobalTranz, then everyone heard of GlobalTranz, right? Because this truckload department, they'd always been known for LTL, and then Mike came in and built the first real W-2 business at GlobalTranz. It was always agents, and Mike built an in-house truckload division, which, clearly boomed and took off and was bought by private equity multiple times, and now is, part of Worldwide. And so it was wild. It was fun. It was wild. It was a lot of times a blue martini, like you said. And when I go back and look at the people that I've met, just in those first 2 years of GlobalTranz, that shaped my career, the men and women that I met both at GlobalTranz and the BGSA conference and all across the country, those 2 years really were the most important 2 years for me to meet and become and feel like I was part of an industry. Right? That was really cool. I never felt like I was part of this club, these guys that did.
It was a club.
It was
changed
a club.
a lot of people's careers.
Really did.
I was there for 3 years. I think I left around 2010. I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
2000, almost 2011. So maybe it was almost 4 years, like 7 to 11. But the collection of people,
It's a club.
And there's more stuff to talk about your career journey and trajectory. But there's people that you met there that are either your business partners or your investors.
Board members, investors, friends, angel. I look at most of our Acura ones, the angel investors, all of them I met in 2011. Pretty much all of them at the BGSA conference down in Florida, from Kevin Nolan, Justin Hall, Prasad, Robbie Nathan, all of these investors are short. There's so many people that I met. In fact, I've got this list that I should pull up. We can go to that later. But that year at BGSA and the following years after it, meeting these men and women. Ben's conference has just been, I think Ben Gordon's conference has had such an impact on so many people's lives. Whether they want to admit that or not admit that, I don't know. It has on me. And to look at just the great folks that I've met that have become either inspirations for me, just as humans, and looking at what they've done, the empire that Kevin, what he's put together, unbelievable.
Creek, everything else.
Just all of his businesses. Robbie up in Boulder, he's on your podcast as well. What Robbie did with Logistical Labs, really having one of the first tech companies in the space with Logistical Labs. A lot of people kind of forget about that. Being able to see meeting. I remember when I met Prasad there. Mentioned Justin and a lot of other people that just got to really help me build out. Chris Ricciardi from Logistical Labs. It was inspiring to see a bunch of men and women free of, I don't know, fear.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know, or just completely confident or crazy, or a little bit of all of those things, because I think we were all nuts. And then watching that happen was just awesome, and being a part of it, I feel so honored and full of gratitude to kind of gotten in that club when I did.
Then you had a little pivot there from GlobalTranz to another company.
Well, we had this vision, Andrew especially, to create this marketplace, right? I think everybody's had, not but a lot of people had the vision to create the marketplace, and so as we got better at building tech, we decided we should start a tech company. We shouldn't just be building this technology for ourselves. We should build a technology for the industry. We should build a marketplace. And so we created an internal entity. It was a wholly owned subsidiary of GlobalTranz. It was called 10-4 Systems. And, I honestly, dude, I don't even really remember what the first build was. I don't remember. I just don't. There's so much going on. I can tell you what we built over 5 years. But what it led to was some frustration, especially when the private equity firms came in. What is this, and what is this, and who runs this, and why is it hitting our P&L, and why are you spending N number of hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on this? And so we did a spinoff. And so the legal issue is, Andrew put in $13 million, led the Series A. We did a spinoff. We created a net new company with a bunch of other things that happened to create a company that we ended up I don't think a lot of people know this. We founded it on October 4th, 2012. 10-4 was founded on 10-4.
Wow.
That's all Jim Hyde. That's all Jim Hyde pulling that off.
Man.
And that launched 10-4. And so for about a year, I was CTO of GlobalTranz and the president of 10-4 as we kind of transitioned everything. That's when we brought in John Hess.
Yep.
John Hess came from Boulder. I introduced him to be my CTO, and then he got taken to go be GlobalTranz's CTO, which is fine. And we spent 5 years building a lot of badass technology that was way too far ahead of being commercially viable, I'll call it. Some of the products were commercially viable. Andrew and I got into a major disagreement about charging for software versus building a marketplace. Andrew's vision has always been massive and big to create a marketplace where the marketplace is the monetization strategy, not the software behind it. Mm-hmm. And, I largely lost that argument for 4 years. And, we created the truck's capacitor, which is now they would call that an AI email scraper. I mean, we were doing some stuff that was awesome back then. We had a private marketplace, we're private fleets, we sold private fleet capacity. We had Nonstop. Nonstop is the genesis of Carrier One, so we can come back to that. Nonstop, we had 11,000 MC numbers that were registered active. It was probably one of the most used TMSs in the space that no one knew about because we didn't monetize it.
Man.
Because everything we were doing was to get a capacity or a load, right? That's all we were trying to do.
Yeah.
But because we had the connotations being owned by GlobalTranz, brokers wouldn't work with us. Let's just be real honest. They wouldn't.
Interesting.
Right? They just wouldn't. It's just a fact. Some of them would. Shippers would. Carriers would. But we had a hell of a time. So we built this marketplace that this is in 2014 or 15. You booked a load. Load would show up on a map. And the load would track. That wasn't a thing. No one had done that, right? And so we hired Gordy Ferguson. We hired some people, and we started doing sales calls. And we'd show it to a shipper and be like, well, what's that? What's that part? I don't care about I already do all of the other things. What's that thing on a map, right?
Yeah.
That was literally.
That was what they wanted.
And I'm like, demo after demo after demo. I was like, that's our product. That is meant to be a piece of this marketplace, the 10-4 marketplace. It was embedded in the marketplace. And anybody that it was on Nonstop, was on our proprietary technology. And so we got a phone call. This is all public knowledge, not on the water. It's buried on the internet. We talked about this, right?
Yep.
Pepsi called us. I'll try to keep this as high level as possible. Pepsi called us, can you bring our fleet to life? We don't know where our trucks are.
Jeez.
I was like, what do you mean? No, we don't really know. I was like, how many do you have? 19,000. And so, we got a hold of Trimble. We integrated with PeopleNet. In a matter of weeks, we created the first real true visibility product. MacroPoint was tracking, was doing pings, but there wasn't a visibility product that was at an enterprise level yet. And then a guy named Mark Solomon got a hold of me and got some information out of me that I said was off the record, and the article got published in DC Velocity in print.
Yep.
Forever land.
Oh, yeah.
I think you found the article since.
Yeah, back in
FreightWaves. Things got dicey for me. Personally, professionally, it got pretty ugly. I thought I would probably get fired because this got happened. We built this amazing product, but Jeremy Estep, if you guys remember Jeremy Estep,
Talked to him 2 days ago.
got me set up. No, I think he thinks I've forgotten this. Jeremy Estep got me set up with a meeting with a company called Anheuser-Busch. And we got on a plane. We went and showed them what we built. They were kind of like, whoa, you can do, because they didn't have their own trucks. Remember, this is a huge leap going from Pepsi, bringing their whole entire fleet. We had every fleet, every asset, Frito-Lay, Gatorade, Quaker Oats, that's a mouthful if you try to say it all at once. Pepsi, and we had them all by brand. And let me tell you, the first visualizations of trucks on a map were not pretty. It's not usable. But when we started to figure out this is where now DHL comes into play.
Yeah.
And I knew that the issue with shipper visibility was not where's my truck. What's on my truck? I have a customer that's calling in, I'm looking for this SKU, I'm looking for this detail. There was no way, because the TMS was not built to do that. TMS doesn't capture order, WMS level order detail.
Correct.
And so I worked with AB and some other people to go into the WMS and get the 856 out. The 856 is for the nerds out there, is the advanced shipments notification. So there's a pre-856 and an 856. The ASN gives you pieces, weight, SKU, commodity, details, dimensions, gives you all the weight. Because what Anheuser-Busch, the real problem, I used to tell the story all the time, whenever the hell the Broncos won the Super Bowl, whenever Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl, and he was drinking Bud Light, I think Budweiser after Super Bowl. You guys kind of remember that, right?
Yeah.
Well, the metaphor, the analogy I used was, and this isn't wrong, but distributors, that's who delivers all the beer to stores, right? If you go to, all beer comes from a distributor, not from Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah.
And so distributors are running out of Budweiser, running out of Bud Light, and they're ordering truckloads of it. And they're waiting for the truckload to show up. The truckload shows up, they open up the door, and it's all Corona bottles. True story. Like,
should have been
absolutely
Coors Light if he's in Denver.
They're ordering Budweiser, kegs, and bottles and cans. And all they're getting is Corona and whatever the hell they're getting. Because at the end of the day, AB does their best to ship what they can. Back, like, this is, again, 12 or 13 years ago. They ship what they have on the dock.
Yeah.
The truck's there. Let's be honest with you.
Let's throw it on.
But the wholesaler doesn't know that until it leaves from St. Louis and goes to South Florida.
Yeah.
Their customers are waiting. So it's this terrible experience. So when we created visibility, we shared the visibility with the wholesaler, but we pulled the data out of the WMS, skipped the TMS altogether. TMS wasn't relevant, except we had to match where the carrier was. So we got the carrier was. And so we built, visibility was really a genesis of my time at Excel and DHL, knowing that that data we needed was in the WM. That the carrier components, the carrier assignment. But the other nice thing is we got a pre-ASN. So we got what was planned to be shipped. So they got the, we think this is what's coming. And then the moment the truck left, we got the actual ship notification in advance.
Yeah.
So we were able to then, I give James Sembrot from, at that time, Anheuser-Busch credit, because we were just some company that had been in business for 5 years that was struggling. Like, we didn't have a long runway left, right? We had one check ever. It's 5 years later, and Andrew and I have been battling about charging for software, and I finally said I'm going to go charge for software. So we gave it to Anheuser-Busch for free, but with unlimited customer testimonial references and rights to show what we built for them. And by the end of the year, we closed like 20 Fortune 100 customers, right?
Wow.
And so
That's wild.
It was crazy. And the Trimble bought us that same year. It was all 1 year, right? It all went from Anheuser-Busch, and then our second customer was Swift. I'm like, wait a minute, Swift?
Yeah.
Think about that, right?
Yeah.
Swift wants to have us help them with their visibility. They were in Phoenix. We were in Phoenix. Yeah. Mike Shashinsky was their CIO. And then Crete. And all of a sudden, I had every Swift and Crete truck in the country. It was wild. Going in, and like they wanted us to demo that they were ahead of the times. We had paper transport, we had Hennef, we had all these carriers that were like saw what was coming, right? Yeah. They're like, we know that this is the future. We want our shippers to know that we want to be ahead of this. And so, we closed GE and Dannon and Chick-fil-A and Lazy Boy and Univar, and I can't even remember all the folks that were out there. It was a lot of fun there. I think I lost that deal, but we went out and it was wild, and it was mainly Adrian Parkaday. Could not have done it without him, because he came over from Pepsi. Adrian was really the vision behind how we did it. He knew how to integrate it with the WMS. He knew how to integrate the TMS. And Adrian really was the leading force. Adrian and I, Jeremy and Gordy were running some sales for us, but Adrian and I were largely going out and closing all these deals. He had the domain knowledge of how the shippers worked. I did not. I didn't have the tech worked. Adrian could speak to the shippers. Adrian had the confidence. He spoke a language I did not speak. Probably speaks a few languages I don't speak, but it was incredible to watch him work, and for my first time in my career to ever be outworked. I'll never forget that at 10-4, right as we sold to Trimble. I wouldn't have been for Adrian. I think Adrian really helped us get across the finish line. And then September 17, deal was done. Sold to Trimble.
So when you sell your company, sometimes there's like, you feel like this loss inside, or it's not quite like the finish line, or sometimes like you can leave the next day, or sometimes you have to stay for a year. Like, what does it feel like to sell a company? Because you sold one earlier in your career.
I was co-founder. Didn't have a huge piece, but I had enough. It was a decent exit. We were ahead of the time. It was more of a survival exit, to be honest with you. It was a great buyer. Trimble needed us, right? They needed that. Felt good for a day, dude. It was about one day. The next day,
5 years,
all that
work.
Go back to work.
Yeah.
It was weird. A lot of things went down with that acquisition. I was not healthy at the time, KJ. I had pushed myself to the edge, of working too much. I hadn't been a good father. I hadn't been a good husband. I wasn't bad. I just wasn't there. I was always gone. I think I was a little distracted with just the business and making sure that it was done. So there was relief, but I think the frustration came after acquisition, largely because we were told a bunch of things were going to happen that would have made this product become the best in the industry, and those things did not happen.
Post-sale.
And that was probably the most disappointing part. Transaction was great. The upside was great. The buyer was great. All the things that they promised us, put on paper, was all great. Just none of it came to fruition. And so that was frustrating.
It's not the first time I've heard about Trimble purchasing a company.
I mean, just look at the news.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if you like, let's say nice things about Trimble.
Sure, absolutely.
Then we'll go on. ALK. That purchase was genius.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It's probably one of the best purchases in a long time. PC Myler, ALK, amazing purchase. I think they bought them after they were cash flow positive, after they were profitable, after they were able to embed it inside of their product. Perfect acquisition. Cubics,
Yep.
10-4.
Suboptimal.
There's more that are out there,
Yeah.
but they didn't have a way to integrate them. And so for us, what I never saw coming is like if you look at what is still there today, our Azure stack became their cloud stack.
Yeah.
So that was the part that I feel good about now. He didn't ask me that question. I'll just answer it and I jump that because I don't really want to talk. I mean, I talk about what happened. There's an article. I got fired. It was awful. It was fucking terrible. Dude. I fucking hated it. But it was like the biggest lesson for me to learn. I'm grateful for it. I'm super grateful for what happened because it taught me a lot of things. I didn't fit there. You know, I was too vocal and too blunt and too honest and too direct about what was happening. Sometimes companies like that want to keep things status quo, and I was probably got ruffled a little too feathers too early. But you know what? Our cloud infrastructure was so far ahead of its time, and it became Trimble's cloud infrastructure, and that's what they really got a good buy out of what they got for that. And my team was there. Most of them were still there too. Actually, just a few weeks ago, they did a major riff. I mean, the great majority of the 10-4 team was still there until a few weeks ago when, you know, they're going a different direction. They downsized their team, whatever. It's probably not public knowledge, but I know a lot of things that happened there. And it was awesome to see that team stick there. You know, Brant was there, I mean, forever. Brant, you know, was, and so it was cool to see what I didn't see in the transaction. I never thought about the underlying infrastructure and technology. I mean, I did, clearly. It was like our separation. We had private tenants, and we did some really cool things with how we kept data private, kept it secure, kept it highly redundant, highly available, and Trimble has now taken that to their, you know, to their other network. But I mean, I love the fact that we did a reverse triangular merger with Trimble. We were able to pull that off. That I learned the lessons about some contracts that we shouldn't have signed. Not with Trimble.
Yeah.
That got exposed when the deal got on the table. It's like, oh, we had to call Ed Ryan with Descartes and go get out of just a booger of a contract with Descartes. It was with macro points. That, like, now that Ed Ryan and I are close, it's a byproduct of that, which is, you know, it was wild. And so I think, but it left it. It's kind of like it left a bad taste in my mouth, and so I thought I was done with freight. That's kind of what I thought.
And I mean, we don't need to dive into the details, but coming from your standpoint of building something, having an acquisition, and then basically not having any control or the company's taking in a different direction, I can imagine how frustrating that would be. Again, I haven't had the pleasure to go through it, at least thus far in my career, but completely understands. Yeah. And so you thought you were done with freight. And then I
was in my mind.
You were done with freight at that time, and then you went out to Maui and again, this is when I was alluding to it earlier, reminiscent of your time going to Costa Rica, Barcelona, and things.
Oh yes, so, I have a pattern.
Yeah, so you go to Maui. Were you just going out there and be like, I'm gonna be in Maui for the rest of my life, and I'm done? What was the thought process?
Or was it a 2-week vacation?
Yeah.
It's gonna sound hilarious. I literally thought I was gonna go out there and be a farmer.
Really?
Forever.
Interesting.
Remember, Cornell Ag School.
Yeah.
Right? I like farming. I grew up on a farm. My grandfather was a farmer. I was driving tractors before I was driving cars. It's always been a way of life that I sometimes prefer to be dirty and in the dirt and working all day, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. You know, we had a large property. We had a nice property in Boulder. My favorite thing to do was working on the land. I mean, that's always been my favorite thing to do. And so, you know, dude, I didn't want to have a plan either. I didn't want to fucking have a plan. I wanted to know what I was doing. I wanted to go out there. I wanted to farm. I wanted to be like this family running barefoot in the jungle. And I messed that all up too. I just messed it all up because then my family and I split up. Not my wife and I split up.
Yeah.
Creates quite a so, and I didn't really want to have a plan, Coleman.
Yeah.
I wanted to kick it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be out in the jungle, off the grid, away from everyone. I was mad. I was angry. I have had to work through my anger issues.
Yeah.
Which I've since took. That's probably what I dealt with a lot of time in my time out there was settling some of my anger issues and getting rid of my ego and realizing that I was the only person that could create my own destiny and no problems were any problems other than mine. Every issue I've ever had for myself was my problem. Mm-hmm. I'm the only person gonna fix them, right?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't the only thing I did out there. I also thought I was gonna write a book and I was gonna make a bunch of music.
Yeah.
To be blunt with you, and I spent a lot of time doing both of them and never quite finished any of them. So I was farming. I started 2 books, did a ton of research, spent a year, almost an entire year doing research on one of them. A guy named Nick Torres, he's come out a lot, and we had a recording studio, so I built a recording studio out there. And I lived my best life, dude. That's just, it was amazing for a while.
Well,
right?
yeah, to unwind just a little bit. So you had a win at GlobalTranz. Yeah. You had a win.
Yeah, they had a
10%.
very nice win at GlobalTranz, yes. Very grateful for that.
Win at 10-4 Systems.
Yeah.
Kind of like, okay, what am I going to do next? I don't want to have any plan. You go out. So you actually
figured I could come back and do it again if I needed to.
Well,
which is a bit of an it's a bit overzealous thinking that.
Maybe you have a few times since, but you actually did get a farm out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking
I
about
bought that
maybe
with,
I'm going to farm. You bought it.
GlobalTranz did that. That was with GlobalTranz.
No, you did
money.
it while you were at
that was
GlobalTranz.
GlobalTranz money. 100% it was.
Yeah. So you had a farm like
12 acres.
12
Maui.
acres. It's in Maui. And can you see the ocean from there?
Yeah, it's very close.
Yeah. And so what type of buildings are on the building? How many
I bought it. Everyone thought I was nuts. I mean, they made it very clear. My mother, my father, my friends, everyone who went and saw the property said, "You're insane." In fact, I had someone come out a few months ago. Like, why did you buy this place? It was 12 acres of overgrown jungle canopy land that you didn't even know the ocean was a couple hundred yards away. And it's probably been one of my things I'm most proud of outside of, my wife and my boys, what we've done to that property. We turned it into a little tropical paradise. And it's been 11 years of transforming that place into something pretty magical. And so it's now, you wrote up in some notes about an off-the-grid farm. I think farming has always been off the grid. I kind of want to separate those two things into two different forks.
Yeah.
Back in 2015, there was like 185,000 Americans who lived off the grid. I don't know what it is now. It's a little bit more, but it's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent.
For sure.
And so even 11, 12 years ago, infrastructure, it just kind of sucked. It was hard. It was a grind, dude. Like power goes out almost every night. You gotta manage what switches you turn on, what outlets you turn on, like what you're doing in the morning. And so a lot of this was me learning a new skill, which I now have one. I have a 1 or 2 probably superhuman skills, and one of them is living off the grid, which is not really that marketable to anything on the earth except living off the grid. And it's something I became great at doing it through failure, mild success, then epic meltdown, or systems go out, or there's carpet rain infestations, or there's flooding, and it's just like all these crazy things that can happen because no power's coming down there, no water's coming down there, no internet's coming down there. Like you have to provide everything. And so to build a farm was mainly tree removal. I had of the 12 acres, probably 11 were under canopy, which meant 11 acres had
that's
11 billion mosquitoes.
You got some experience probably in boulder cutting down
for
trees.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm good at chainsaw. Yeah, that was a bit more work. Remember when we flew out there, the weekend we closed, my buddy Todd and I and Brant flew out there. We got all these chainsaws. We were all so excited. We went out after like 3 hours.
You're like, I'm done. Yeah,
done. This is crazy. The jungle, you don't win. You can fight the jungle, but you never win the jungle.
Yeah.
You don't beat the jungle.
But now you're probably an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter.
I'm a lot of things. I would not call myself an electrician. I know how to. I'm not an electrician, but I know how to run electricity off the grid. There's a difference, right? I don't want to wire my house. I'm not going to do that. I'll kill myself. But I know how to set up my power system and do some things. Yes, I know how to run the inverters and the backups, and so it's just been an evolution of upgrading infrastructure over time and failing at farming. Failing at farming is a big term. Failing at making money for a living being a farmer, right? My first 3 years after I sold 10-4, my taxes were filed with the IRS as a farmer. That's what I did.
Yeah.
And if you looked at my income,
it reflected that.
It reflected being a farmer. And then I started a food business because I realized there is money in agriculture. It's buying an unfinished product and making it a finished product. So what you don't read about, because I don't put it on there because it was another bad ending, Coleman, all these bad endings. We started a business called Mac Nut Mama. I bought it from my friend, and we made a macadamia nut butter company. And with my business partner, by the time we got on 3 islands, we were in 37 stores. We were actually crushing it. We had an amazing social media brand. We had an incredible brand. It was all geared to selling in Whole Foods. We got in ABC stores. If you know ABC stores out in Hawaii, it's like the largest retail chain in Hawaii. It was a huge win for us. But things in Hawaii don't work like they do here. Like when your customers run out of inventory, you have to tell them that they run out of inventory. And managing 37 locations on 3 islands was wild. It was unreally, it was hard to sustain. I was also like starting to get bored and kind of Andrew, I'll never forget when Andrew called me. I told the story at his house the other night for dinner after a TA. He's like, "You're wasting so much talent. You're just wasting." Andrew wasn't being nice. He's being Andrew, right? He was being blunt. It's probably one of the most direct, most honest pieces of feedback I've ever given. He's like, you were so talented, and then you got so mad, and you left, and you ran away, and you hide in the jungle, and you're wasting yourself. It's like, damn. True.
Yeah.
And so, the Macnut Mamba business didn't end well. I'm not going to go into it. It's like so hard to watch something work and be successful and then not.
Yeah.
And maybe I was destined to be in the food business. I don't know. Learned a lot from it. The farming, I say the failure in farming, like I still have this beautiful farm and it's amazing. And we planted over 500 fruit trees. I've got probably 80 varieties, at least 80 varieties on my spreadsheet. We might have over 100 now, probably 20 varieties of tropical fruits and 40 or 50 varieties of tropical flowers. And so it's a fruit and flower farm. The kind of flowers you put in vases, not blowing smoke in Denver. But it's, I'm really proud of that, dude. And I'm a florist. I'll tell you that. I would love to share my pictures of all my floral arrangements that I've done.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite things to do was do floral arrangements out there. We had a really healthy lifestyle, man. Like the food that we were able to grow and what we were able to make and drink and juice and, coconuts and guava, strawberry guava, papaya, banana. Those were kind of the early crops. And then we planted ulu and soursop, avocado. Those are like, and there's infinite numbers of things. I've got, thousands of wild coffee plants. I don't do anything with the coffee. There's too much going on with the coffee. And, coconut trees are kind of my favorite thing now. It's kind of my zen moment is all the coconuts we planted. And Jesse and I used to carry them up from the stream down the river. So our property's got a stream that goes down the ocean. Sorry, not river. It goes down the ocean. We carry them up from the ocean and we plant these little sprouts, and now they're 30 feet tall, dropping 200 nuts a year, and they're all over the property. And so it's been really cool to actually have 10 years with something outside of freight that I've been able to nurture with my hands. I like working with my hands.
Yeah.
So,
And we definitely want to talk about your next step and reintroduction, if you will, to the space. But I think talk about the importance of that time off from the space, right? You were saying how it helped you talk or work through some of the anger things that you had going on, but how did that play a significant part in your career?
Coleman, that's a good question. I got lonely, broke my family apart. Mm-hmm. I spent all my money. I put a lot of it into Maui.
Yeah.
There. And, Andrew's phone call was like a wake-up call, dude. It really was. He wasn't being nice. It wasn't like an encouraging phone call. But it was real.
Yeah.
And I think what had happened is I developed this condition. I don't think you're going to be able to Google this, but it's called jungle brain. And I just wasn't the best version of myself. And I think it took me a while to realize that. And what it did was made me realize that I did have a talent and I did have a community and I did have a bunch of friends and I'm one of up and left, And so it's pretty humbling. Again, humbling. Ego check. And so my son and I, my youngest, moved off the property after Andrew made that phone call. We just packed our bags. We moved into a place in Maui that was way more normal, had air conditioning. This is a very nice place to kind of dry out, not from alcohol, from like the jungle, right? To literally dry out, to actually dry out.
Yeah.
And that's when I called Craig Fuller, because I think Robbie or someone had mentioned that you should just call Craig Fuller. I just called Craig Fuller, and 6 days later I was in Chattanooga, and 7 days later I had a job offer doing media because I was still tarnished, but I didn't want to touch tech. I didn't want to be a product. I didn't want to do technology, the grind of building software. And so I went back to run media with Craig, and it happened so quickly. It just happened. There was the moment of realization that I'd messed up. I'd spent too much time out there. I had walked away from a talent and a community that I worked so hard to build, and out of ego and anger, dude, it was all anger. Everything that I had was anger, and it was all on me.
But I think it's good. I think that it provided you that perspective of probably something that you didn't realize that you had when you made the transition from the industry, of saying, okay, taking a step back, this is what it's afforded me thus far in my career, and this is where my strengths are.
You're right.
So I think that no matter what anybody says, time well spent, for sure.
Yeah.
And you still have the property.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, yes. I mean, I did things that were wild and crazy and amazing. Sure, I had the greatest 4 years. I mean, I still think at the time of Barcelona was different because it was in this dense urban environment.
Yeah.
But the time in Maui was wild. And to live out there during COVID, man, I feel so blessed. Like, that's when the blessed part kind of shifted. We were out there, and the community that we developed during COVID was just incredible because Island was closed and the kids were just so present. And that's when I really started to shift. You know, it had been 2.5 years since the acquisition.
Yeah.
Really started to focus on being a better father. And not that the boys and I had the most amazing time. In fact, I'd spend, my wife's always like, what are you doing? Because literally almost every night I go back and just look at the photos of our time together and watch the boys grow up for the 4 years that we were out there. And they came out as little kids, and they kind of left as adolescents, many adults. And, you know, the things that we got to do as with my dogs and with boys were epic. You know, and we talk about all the time. And so I'm really grateful for the time with nature, the time with the boys, but still a little upset at myself.
Yeah.
Right. For being so all in or all out on everything always, right? It's been hard for me even as a Libra, to find balance. Like, I really struggle to find balance in my life. And so, you know, lately that's really been what I'm trying to focus on more. And yeah, it helped make me who I am. Yeah. And it is part of who I am, and part of me is out there every day. Right?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And when you were talking about going into working with Craig and FreightWaves, did you know Craig beforehand, or did you just cold call him and said, "Let me
cold call him?"
Yeah,
cold call Craig.
Yeah, Craig, you guys sound like Craig right now. Craig's like, we met one time, and you called me like out of nowhere. We met in 2016. We met at the old IFR Transport conference. I don't know if anybody remembers those things. It was at that Pink Hotel in Chicago. People like there was. What was that place called?
Pink Hotel in Chicago?
There's like a hotel. It's all pink on the inside. Anybody that's been to IFT knows which hotel I'm talking about. And I remember it was me and Robbie Nathan introduced me to Craig. We were sitting down, and I'm just slamming margaritas, and Craig was drinking non-alcoholic beers, and Robbie was watching us both. And we were talking about freight futures and trading freight on contracts. And this was like, I was one of the 10-4 was the second member of BIDA. We're the first people joined BIDA, which became Sonar, right? Blockchain Transportation Alliance. So Craig knew who I was. But we really only spent one night, all night long at this table. And no, I didn't. I didn't know Craig that well at all. And so all George Abernathy and all these people talk about how this homeless guy walked into FreightWaves one day. People are like, is that guy, do we call the police, or is that Travis Rhyan? And so Craig just, like, honestly trusted his gut. Gave me a job offer. I wasn't calling him for a job. I was calling him because all of a sudden I came back and like, what is FreightWaves? Wow, like, it wasn't around, right? There was nothing like that in our early days. There was nothing. There was General Commerce. There was DC Velocity. There was no digital. Like, all of a sudden, freight was cooler. Now it's cool, right? Craig has made freight like legitimately cool, or at least part of the industry, and Craig's going to become one of the biggest, boldest brands in the space. But no, I wasn't calling for a job. I didn't know what I was calling for. Again, I was trusting my intuition, and then I got a job. And then Craig was crazy enough, in a wonderful way, to let me be an executive living in Maui.
Man.
That was during COVID.
Yeah. So a little easier.
During COVID. And so, you know, it was awesome. I changed my whole lifestyle. I got up at 3:30 in the morning. I worked East Coast hours. It was amazing.
Wow.
So I was on calls at 4 every day. I did not want to let anybody down on my team. I traveled back and forth, fly through Dallas. It was Maui to Dallas to Chattanooga. And believe it or not, Maui flights are not any more expensive. You think they would be than domestic flights. They're not. They've got to be subsidized. The math doesn't make sense. It never has to me. It's cheaper to fly to Maui than it is to San Diego from Scottsdale every day.
That's crazy.
Maybe if you book a year out. But, and so, Craig gave me this like opportunity, and I was really grateful to be back. It was weird. It was me and Ray and my computer.
Yeah.
Jack had moved back to Arizona to play baseball. Jesse was still living in Maui, and it was like, Ray's like, I want to do what you do, and I was like,
Let me tell you the story.
He was just, interested in it, and so, I eventually took back over product. That's Craig. I joked that Craig tricked me. He didn't trick me. That was the better fit for me. We built Sonar SCI, which was a lot of fun, under a big deadline, and created a real shipper-facing product, which Sonar really had never been, right? It was a data product, amazing data product. UI was really geared more towards brokers and day trading as a broker. We built supply chain intelligence, which I took all my time from all my jobs, any place I've ever worked at, specifically DHL and 10-4, to create this really cool benchmarking. Craig's metaphor was BAMF, which is badass mother. It's actually benchmark, analyze, monitor, and forecast. But he always says badass mother trucker, but with an F. And so that was my design requirements. He's like, you need to create a product for shippers that's benchmark, analyze, monitor, and forecast.
Okay.
And so I flew to Boulder, and I went and I sat down with Brant. I didn't know what else to do, KJ. I didn't know what to do. I hadn't created a product in freaking half a decade, at least half a decade. So I had writer's block, what do they call
Writer's
it?
block?
Writer's block. I had all the blocks and all the cramps, and I had no idea, and I did not want to let Craig down on my first special assignment to create a product. And I called Adrian, I called Brant. I was just having a hell of a time, and then it clicked. Just clicked one night. I was at the Residence Inn up in Boulder, and I just started drawing. Right, and then Supply SCI came to life, and I worked with Fred Doe and Ryan House, two amazing engineers. Fred now works for me as my CTO, and we made this product in 6 weeks for a trade show or for one of the FreightWaves shows, and we unveiled it. Clearly, it was a prototype, and it's become a really an incredibly core product part of how Sonar operates today, and how they've been able to they've taken it. It's great to see what they've done with it. It's great to see the evolution, but that was me kind of coming back into the game, building SCI, and then Craig's like, oh, this guy's actually legit. And then Craig and I become, really good friends.
He's not just a homeless guy walking off the street.
That was George Abernathy. For anybody who knows George,
I
thought I was a homeless guy standing in the FreightWaves lobby. True story. And I think I don't think that was totally true, but I know why he said that. I may have had long hair and earrings, but that's anything different.
Well, and then in hindsight, looking at what Sonar is now and the part that you played in it, it's probably a nice contrast and a welcome back to the industry, if you will, from seeing what happened before with Trimble, and then now, again, getting to look at what Sonar's become and saying, oh, this is amazing.
Dude, you're so right, because Craig built Sonar. That was a very, his vision to have that data. I remember when I got there, and they showed me, I was like, I need to see the data.
Yeah.
I'm with this guy, Martin. I was like, the product, let me see the data. Let's go into the hood, show me all the databases, show me all the tables. And I was like, oh my God. Holy cow, this guy's sitting on gold mine after gold mine after gold mine after gold mine. So I got to really the only reason I got to build that product because that data was there that they had. And yes, it feels good. It does to see, and Brad Ganane, who sells the product for them, if you know Brad or not, big tall Brad. Brad's the chief revenue officer at FreightWaves or Sonar, and it's been awesome to see. I was only there for a couple years, whatever it says in my how long I was there for, and it was awesome times. Working with those guys, and it does feel good. I didn't even think about that. I mean, I think about it sometimes when it gets brought up, but thank you, Coleman, for making me think about it again. It does. It was cool.
Yeah,
still is. I'm happy for him. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, and then in 2022, again going off of this, you transitioned then over to MyCarrier as
that's
the chief.
when you say it was.
Yeah, exactly.
What my LinkedIn said it was.
Ballpark at least, right?
Sure.
As their chief product officer.
Yeah.
So what caused the transition? Why did you want to join that team? What was that like?
Probably my ego is what caused the transition. To be blunt. I was a little stalled out at some things that were happening at Sonar, just with my ability to deliver what I was doing and other things in the business. Craig and I are cool about it. He knows what it is. And I just felt that it was probably time for me to go and accelerate my career. I was living in Ohio, and I didn't really know where I wanted to move. And it was with Bookout and Scheid, the old GlobalTranz guys, Jesse's. We kind of needed to get back to Scottsdale. Needed is the wrong term. And so moving back to Scottsdale had at least half to do with it. Yeah. And I didn't want to work remote. I did. I was in the office. And so I was able to get a really nice opportunity where they paid for the family to up and move back out there. Got to go back and work with Bookout. I could ride my bike to the office, and Ray and Jack could both ride their bikes to school. It's like we were able to drop a pin. So a lot of it was my wife and I got back together. It was kind of like a combination of Jesse and I getting back together, us getting our whole family back together back in Scottsdale, moving into a place where we could be 1 mile within everything.
Yeah.
And so I think it was, less about leaving FreightWaves and really more about creating this new journey with our family miraculously back together after all this time.
Congrats.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I think, that, and then, they were really just gracious and taking care of the move. And it was really cool. We wanted to get out of Ohio. We talked about moving to Chattanooga, but Jesse really wanted to go back to Scottsdale. And was kind of, what was our plan. So I would say it was a much more of a personal decision. There was some ego things with me wanting, Craig says I have shiny ball syndrome. That was probably a little bit of it. Craig's always usually partially right. But I think it was really to get my family back on track, to be real honest with you. And we did. And that totally is what happened.
Yeah.
It was the greatest benefactor of moving back to Scottsdale.
Yeah. And I think that the personal reasons is just as important as anything from a career standpoint. But Craig said it, shiny ball syndrome. Yeah. What was it that drew you into MyCarrier? If anything, or were they just like, Travis, you should come work with us?
They were really looking. It was the fortuitous timing. It was very much timing.
Yeah.
Life is usually timing, luck, all those things, right? And it was just the timing. I ran into Mike. I was at a spot where I was ready. They were looking for a product person. I clearly had the domain knowledge. Was finally clearly had done a lot of the things. I saw a great opportunity for equity because I don't work. Salary is great. I like to work for equity. Clearly.
Yeah.
There was a great equity position that was there. I think they needed a massive trade. I had to redo their entire product department from literally from the ground up. Didn't know that yet. Did not know that, but I did. And I think it was just, God works in mysterious ways. And I think God was involved in helping bring us together. And it just happened. It literally happened in a matter of hours. When it's me deciding I needed to find something, and the first person I literally ran into after making that decision was Book Out. And then he called me and was like, what do we need to do to make this happen? And I was like, well, I need to move back to Scottsdale. He's like, what do you need to make me back to Scottsdale? And it was divine intervention and, maybe a little bit of manifestation and all the above, but it was clearly meant to happen. At least so I thought it to be. And it just happened. It literally just was quick.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that all of this is then culminating into obviously what you're doing now, right? When you started Carrier One, what is the mission behind it? Why did you want to just start and found your own company after working with some of these other ones? Where did that, I guess, drive come from?
It was June 2 years ago, and I was out in Maui for Nick Torres' bachelor party. Nick. So, and it was a Sunday morning. I got a phone call from Taylor Mitchell, letting me know about this lawsuit that had been filed with Project 44 in MyCarrier. And honestly, I was like, you know what? To see two guys who've known each other for that long in the industry, I was like, I'm done. I love Mike. I love Jet. I want to be in charge of my own destiny.
You want to be Switzerland?
I just wanted to be me. You know, it wasn't anti anybody. It was that was a moment that I had been wanting to do this for a while, Coleman.
Yeah.
I had this idea. It was October the previous year that I came up with the Carrier. That I had came up with the Carrier One kind of concept. It was in Boulder. Went out to a party with Brant. And I came home and I had this great idea and I wrote it all out on my phone. I still have the whole original business plan. This is almost 3 years ago. And I just was chicken. I was just chicken. I was like, I'm just doing my own thing.
Same time as in Aspen.
Yeah.
So then what was it?
That lawsuit.
There was
me
a lawsuit
being like,
that
this
pushed you
is
over.
stupid. Why can't we all get along? And that sounds ridiculous, but it was like I don't want to be at the controls of people outside of me. I want to be player one.
Yeah.
Right? I want to control my own destiny. I would rather fail than be not be in control of my outcomes in my life, for both my professionally and personally. Right? I made that decision personally, and so I didn't. I was disappointed, not about the lawsuit, just seeing these two guys who've known each other for a long time, and there was this emotional feeling. I can tell you the exact date, and I was like, I'm going to start this new company, and I'd been waiting to do it, and so clearly, I went and told Mike. By October, about a year after I had the idea, that was July. I was like, Mike, I'm going to start this. I don't. It's just an idea right now. There's no code. This is what I want to be doing this, And he was so freaking supportive, like was amazing both during my onboarding and coming into MyCarrier, my exit, coming out of MyCarrier, was super supportive and supporting me through it. And, you know, I really just felt that the time also, dude, Coleman, like you think about, let's zoom out for a second, macroeconomically in freight.
Yeah.
Who knows how much longer this whole thing will be a thing, to be blunt with you. Trucking will always be there, but technology is changing. Things
very
are
quickly.
changing.
Yeah.
The amount of time left to do the things that I know how to do and their potential enterprise value in the space, I do think has got a short window to it. I don't mean that AI will put everything out of business. I don't know what is going to happen, but I saw this window. I saw the need in the industry for something. And I decided it's now or never, and swing big or go home. And so it was like, it's time. If I want to do something, I want to swing for the fences. I either want to hit a grand slam or I want to strike out. And if I hit a single or double, cool. It's
Is
fine,
that why you
right?
wear the jersey today? You're
It's coming full circle.
It is our metaphor. We use the baseball metaphor at Carrier One every day. And we created a revenue manifesto when we first started. Well, Jake and I got together, we sat down and said, let's create a revenue manifesto and let's talk about all the 10 potential ways this could work. We didn't come up with there were 10 empirically that came from the data. How could Carrier One do this? Who are our 10 markets? We've got, for hire carriers, we've got private fleets, we've got brokers, we've got LTO carriers, we have factoring companies, insurance companies, with all these things. And we're like, some of these are grand slams, right? Some of these are singles, some of these are home runs. We only want to go after the things right now that could be grand slams or home runs, knowing those have a lower probability, higher outcome. The other ones that had much higher probability, lower outcome, right? Mm-hmm. And so we kind of went down a revenue manifesto and decided that we swing, go to the plate and swing. So I wanted to to do that next. Whether that's, I'll never say I really don't like the words always and never.
Yeah.
Scary words to use because I used to use them all the time. And so now it's like, this is what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
Who knows what will happen after this?
There's been some of these threads where you're thrown into something, you don't know anything, and then you're like number 2 in something, and then you're founding something, and then you're going and traveling to a really cool place, and then it's kind of like doing it again.
Imagine if could be more consistent, KJ. Consistency is something that when I'm in it, I'm in it. But it's like, if I could change anything, I'd probably take Andrew's advice and just have been more consistent and just stayed in it and not been so manic at times. And just stayed. But you're right. And sometimes, and just full transparency, sometimes I think in my career I've been a better number 2. Be blunt with you. I'll be very honest with you. I do.
Yeah.
But then there's times like now where I need to be player number 1.
Yeah, it's one of these that makes you so dynamic, I think. I don't think there's anything you can't do. So whether it's finance, whether it's selling, you can sell.
Yeah, I love selling.
Whether product, whether there's coding, there's leading, hiring, training, coaching.
Everything else. No coding.
I've seen you get in there.
No coding. I do not put that on my resume.
Okay, we won't put engineering.
No. Leader of engineers.
I've talked to some people like he hired the best people ever. Maybe it was Jim Heidi might have told me that. And then I think that one of the other things that's really dynamic about you is how you've collected people at every stop.
Yeah.
That are not only your friends, but they become your future business partners.
Let's talk about business partners.
Sure.
The word friend I'm a little allergic to these days.
Okay, that's fine. You're still my friend.
With you, we are, yes. I just, after my time in Maui made me very apprehensive of using that word. I prefer people that have a common mission, which is a business partner or a person that we're on a common mission together. I prefer that. Friends are. Yes, you and I are.
They can come and go.
I'll leave it at that.
They can come and go
for sure. They do. They do come and go, and
Yeah.
sometimes they usually take when they leave. So, and I'm too nice to. So I've just tried to become a bit more hardened. The admissions office for Friends is closed. And if you see that sign over there,
exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm taking business applicants all the time, right? But Friends, you got to figure out a way to get in the back door or something.
But there are people that you've had that are going to be on the same mission as you right now with Carrier One.
100%.
And it looks like looking on LinkedIn and meeting them in person and seeing them at the conferences that I'm seeing that they worked with you at FreightWaves, or they worked with you
GlobalTranz.
at MyCarrier, GlobalTranz,
yeah, 100%.
or 10-4 Systems.
That's right. Absolutely. And I figured this time, I don't want to say this would be my last time, but this would be the next time, the time to do it right, the time to learn, and the time to, meeting Dalton.
Yeah.
For both of us, that was new, right? That was all through Eric Lenz, old GlobalTranz guy. It's all came from the network, right? Yeah. But having Dalton come into the fold and the Thielens family, that's the new generation of people in their life, and everybody else has been around for a while. And I think I've learned that I want to work with people who will make sacrifices, because I make sacrifices every day. I'll make sacrifices for my team. They all know that. There's no doubt there. But I need people. I don't want them. I need them who will make sacrifices, and that will all march towards, a common goal and a common theme. Like I started using the wolf pack metaphor when I was at MyCarrier, because I had some team members that were struggling and that like to take a lot of time off. And I was like, we're a wolf pack. If you're going to take time off, just get ahead of the wolf pack. We'll catch up to you while you're gone.
Yeah.
Right? And like, I feel like, there's some expression that's famous. A small group of dedicated people can change the world. There's some quote, right? It's like a small amount of people, blah, 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 can do anything and change the world. And that's how we're trying to be at Carrier One. There's only 7 of us. We want to stay lean, but like we have to move as a wolf pack. And when we move as a pack, we can do anything we want to. When one person strays or gets behind, and I don't want to be too far ahead, it's a challenge, right? And so that's really it, KJ. I wanted to assemble a group of wolves. Period.
That's a good metaphor.
Yeah.
Have you guys defined your ICP?
Yes.
Does it sound like he's winning the show
No,
today?
exactly. I mean, I don't want to
fine.
be cryptic. I hate that. Let's just take a step back at what
Sure.
Carrier One's mission has evolved into. I'll be honest with you. When I started this thing, I wanted to call it 1TM. It's initial vision for One Transportation Management. I've kind of moved away from that. And I can even read you the original notes from almost 3 years ago now, of like up in Boulder, just brainstorming out this whole vision of what Carrier One would be. But there's a few problems, all very public information. There's 430,000 MC numbers, whatever.
Yeah.
400,000. That doesn't matter. It's called 400,000. 90% have less than 10 trucks.
Mm-hmm.
The great majority of those have no technology. Therefore, brokerage exists, right? Because brokerage does all the work for the carrier. They're the ones calling, booking, emailing. I used to say faxing. Like, I'm so used to that because I'm old. And so then you have brokerages, and you have I come from a brokerage. Like, that's my first company I ever started, was a broker. I used to make hundreds of phone calls a day to book loads. And you look at what's happened now is you went from brokerages having massive offices full of people to massive offices not full of people. Their teams are largely overseas that are doing PPO themselves through other third parties. Brokerages used to need technology to be a competitive differentiation, and now I think it's almost the opposite. I don't think a shipper chooses a broker because of their TMS or their carrier portal or their tracking technology. I do not believe that. And I think what has happened is technology has become more commoditized. Brokerages have to find a way to create a different type of differentiation. They have to run at lower margins, and they have to seek automation. Just have to. Agreed? Anybody
I'm not going to go to bat on the opposite end of that one. That's
so
for
we're
sure.
like, all right, well, what's the underlying problem with this? Well, it's that every broker, let's talk about the top 100, top 200, has built their own technology to solve the same problem with the same carriers. So what they're doing is unintentionally punishing the carriers by making them not adopt technology because they got 1,000 different systems to do the same damn thing with every single day. And it drives them crazy. It drives the carriers nuts. Brokers don't always think about the carriers. They do. They think about their carriers. They're very important to them. But it's like, unless you're an EDI carrier, you know what that means. I'm set up on EDI. You're emailing a rate confirmation, you're calling them or using an AI agent to make sure that they got it, you're deploying a third or fourth party tracking service, then you're putting an AI service on top of that because those don't always work. Then you have to get status updates and exceptions and how you tracking down paperwork, and then getting the POD, and then hiring another company to get the POD to do the invoicing, and then someone else is paying it. It's kind of crazy. It works. It's bound together by all these practices.
Yeah, it's super fragmented.
Then you've got, only pick on one company tonight. DAT. Then you got these massive DAT bills and all this stuff where brokers have to post fake data because they can put their real data in. It's just such a convoluted space, and that has not changed. It's actually gotten worse. And so our ICP is the company that wants to fix that. We don't sell software as a service. We provide automation and we provide infrastructure. That's what we do. And so our pitch is different. You're like, oh, you guys are a TMS. You guys are a TMS company. Well, we had to build one. We have a TMS for fleets of under 10 trucks that we do not charge for. That is not our business model. We're bringing that to the market. That is a gift we're giving to our customers who are the brokerage carriers. We don't sell a TMS. We have probably one of the best TMSs and I use TMS because I even hate that word, that acronym, right? And so what we are providing for brokers, think about, this is something you'll hear me talk about. SAP and Oracle did a great thing to create the ERP market.
Okay.
That's what SAP and Oracle do.
Yeah.
We
Plan.
failed.
Yeah.
But that's planning. They don't do the work. The user has to do the shit. The user has to push it through the system. The user has to execute the transaction. The user has to set up all the things to make the shipment work. The shipment doesn't just happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we are a new era. We are giving enterprise resource automation to brokers. That's who we're selling to. Brokerages that have enterprise resource problems. You know who that is? Every broker over $100 million in revenue. Every single one. Maybe over 50 million. And so we provide transportation management automation, see what I'm doing here?
Yeah.
TMA, and enterprise resource automation, and create a fully automated platform so that brokers and carriers can shift the workload. Carriers can embrace technology that is world-class. It's integrating their factoring company, their insurance provider, their parking providers, everything into a simple, cohesive platform that is completely free for them to use. That's not a string. That's not a gimmick. Because the people that need that automation are the broker, and the broker's customer, the shipper. And so it is a bodacious and ambitious effort that we are after. We have two products, the Vault and Drive. Vault brings brokers to carriers. The Drive connects drivers to carriers. And that is really, if you think about a German chocolate cake, wouldn't be very good if there was no icing.
Yeah.
That's kind of carrier one is the icing. We're not the broker, we're not the carrier, we're not the driver, but we are the Vault and we're Drive that bring those layers together in the icing that make it a complete experience. And that's really what we're selling. And it's a long, I wouldn't say it's a long play. There's a lot of things that we can solve as a byproduct of that. I don't want to be cryptic, but I don't want to tell it everything that we're doing because some of the things are still somewhat cooking in the oven. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Some of it's still in the oven. I just came up with that. Not that I'll use it again. But and so our ICP is an enterprise. We have two products. Vault, we sell to brokers. Drive, we sell to trucking companies. So fleets that want to automate and improve driver retention, purchase Drive. Drive is our mobile app. It's awesome. It does pre-trip inspections. It's a completely configured workflow tool for trucking companies who have truck drivers, which would be every trucking company, right? Of people that can afford an enterprise subscription. It's not terribly expensive, but it's a per truck per month fee. And what that does is we integrate to their TMS. They can use ours for free. We don't sell a TMS. You want a free TMS? Come and buy our mobile solution.
Yeah.
It's awesome. We were at TIA last week and like, you don't charge for your TMS? Nope. We just have to buy your mobile app? Yep. And so the mobile app does every single thing a driver would need to do from pre-trip inspection to payment.
Man.
They do settlements. They do load flow, parking, route. We don't do turn by turn. Clearly, there's enough companies that are out there that do that, but we do settlements. We do issue resolution. We do document capture. We do encrypted chat. So any driver can be connected to their dispatcher. Any driver can be connected to their broker if that connectivity is enabled. And so that is a product that feeds the Vault, though. It's all meant because through mobility, you can achieve automation. Mm-hmm. That's what anybody. So do we connect to an ELD? Of course. We connect to all ELDs. Jeremy, Katina, and those guys have been great. We can connect to an ELD system in a matter of seconds, any trucking company in America. So we give the ELD connectivity. We charge for our mobile app, but everything else is completely included. So a carrier can, buy our mobile app, either use our TMS, we'll connect to McLeod, we'll connect to freaking AS400, going live tomorrow with maybe Monday with this really fun project we've been working on, but we can connect to any TMS. And therefore, the customer gets a new world-class experience they can use for certain functions. They don't have to, but the driver gets to be brought into the modern world. Most driver apps are not good. So I'm sorry I've got a good one outside of that. I don't think we've got to go driver technology. In-cab experience for a driver. So we really believe the driver is the one that needs to be brought into the modern world. The driver is the one that can use Carrier One's Drive, and it's all branded as the trucking company. It's kind of cool how we've done it. It's one app in the App Store, but all for every company. And then the Vault is a product which you'll be reading some press releases about in the near term about who we'll be partnering with to be bringing this to market.
Nice.
Very exciting stuff. But the Vault we sell to brokerages of I would say relative size and scale, like a guy that does a couple loads a day probably is the best fit for us right now.
Yeah.
We're really focused on the top 100 as we speak. But that changes, and there's always, but really it is entities who work with small trucking companies who do things without a fully automated platform that does everything. That's really who we work with. So if you're a broker and all you do is work with big trucking companies or set with EDI, cool. Good job. Like, way to build that. But that's not who we are. We work with companies that need automation with a long tail. The 97% of trucking companies that have less than 10 trucks that need an awesome piece of technology to run their business for free, as well as their business with their brokerage customers. That makes sense?
It does. You got a lot going on with this new company. You're excited.
Only a little bit.
I'm excited. Yeah, it's a lot. I think it's more, the first statement is very accurate. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So as we're nearing the end of the conversation here, something that KJ and I have talked about a lot about your career, and obviously mean this in the best way, but you've willed your way, it seems like, into different companies and willed your way into different roles, which isn't the typical quote unquote career path, right? We deal with people's careers all the time. Is there something that you would recommend to the listeners out there of saying, hey, make sure to do this in your career, or don't be closed off to this? Anything that you've kind of taken, and again, creating your own career path that you would like to, I don't know, kind of add value to other people?
Like, analogy, metaphor, life's a video game.
Yeah.
Are you a non-player character? If you are an NPC, figure out how to be a player 1, or at least a player 2. Like, you have to move up in life. You have to be able to evolve through the game. Life is somewhat of a game.
Yeah.
May not be fun.
Yeah.
It may not have like a lot of like awards, but it's gamified, right? And so I think for the folks that want to be moving up, that like figure out how you be, like, first of all, figure out who you are in the game. There's no wrong answer.
Yeah.
The wrong answer is not knowing.
Yeah.
Clearly, that would be the only failure, is not knowing who you are. Figure out who you are in the game. Once you know who you are in the game, evaluate the game.
Yeah.
How do I, if I don't want to be that player, how do I become someone else? And maybe you don't want to be player 1. It's not everybody. You need to be player 1 of your life, because you're the only person preventing you from doing what you want to do. You're the only person that's going to stop you. No one on planet Earth cares enough to stop you. No one. I'm sorry. That is not a fact. Or that is a fact. No one will stop you. Yeah. Only you will. Right, Coleman? So if you decide that you're cool being an NPC, that's fine. I just be cool with who you are.
Yeah.
If not, change that and become the player in the game. And then I think for some people have become the writers and makers of the video game.
Yeah.
That is like the next level, right? And then some people became the franchises to create the games. And I think if you look at life real simply, and I'm not a video game player, but clearly I grew up on Nintendo and Atari and all the fun things, like I know what these things are. Where is your character today? Where do you want your character tomorrow to be? And what do you need to do to get there? It's usually not that complicated. It might take risk. It might take dying in a level and starting all over again. You're not going to die in life, right? And then the other thing is, like, as long as you are progressing and you feel like you're unlocking new levels in life and that you feel that you're moving, but you can't do anything until you know where you are in the game.
Yeah. Man, that's pretty profound.
We have not heard it said that way yet.
Yeah.
Ever.
I think about it all the time.
And it's so true. It's so true.
And I'll tell you, last year, I had this realization at the very beginning of last year, the end of the year before that, when I started Care One. I was fucking player 1. I was ready to go. Then my dad died. And it knocked me out of the game. Not literally, but it knocked me out of that. And it has taken me a while to regain that player 1 confidence. So, like, don't be afraid to get knocked out. You're going to get knocked out. You're going to get kicked. You're going to get kicked off a board. Your player might get deleted. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. So it's not a one-time thing. You don't do this once.
Yeah.
You have to continually refine and remind yourself who you are. Find yourself in the game. It's okay if you get lost. It's okay if you get kicked out, if you die. It happened to me, and I'm just now coming back to really try to be the game maker now. Because I got knocked out as a player 1. It was really hard, man. And so now it's like I really want to make sure that I'm creating player 1s that work for me, that work with me, that we can all be. I tell my team every day, you are the CEO of yourself at this company. You have to be. Like, you cannot thrive and survive in this world if you're not your own CEO. You got me as your boss, but I'm also your business partner. And so I think it's this continual evolution of knowing who you are, knowing what you want to become, and a pretty regular review of how you're doing.
Taking a step
So
back.
you're saying sometimes you just got to keep putting more quarters in.
Yeah, you do. You have to, KJ.
Yeah.
What did you call it? Willed myself into it?
Yeah.
I go like go get some more rolls of quarters sometimes. And sometimes, dude, I had to start with some crappy games. I mean, it is what it is. You gotta be.
Yeah, I've gotten splattered in video games before in life.
There's
Absolutely murdered.
The last thing I'll say is I read this thing recently about how the universe perceives energy, and about how like assholes get what they want, nice people finish last, and how the universe doesn't necessarily know good and bad. It knows confidence, and it recognizes people who know what they want. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been something I've been reading a lot more about lately, is like knowing what you want and having that confidence and conviction that you're going to get it is probably more important than anything. Like in regards to moving somewhere and going from a place to another place. And so having conviction and having confidence and having the belief in oneself is the most important thing to have.
Yeah. Man, so typically when we're ending these conversations, we like to give somebody the mic for 45 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. That was a really good way to end it. But I still want to give you that opportunity, or we still want to give you that opportunity of open mic. If you feel like there's anything that people that are tuning in didn't get a chance to hear about you and your story, any recommendations, anything about Carrier One, anything that you want to talk about for a minute, minute and a half, whatever it is, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just real quickly, I want to thank Dalton and Chris Thielen and Eric Lenz for becoming the first check and believing in us. The guys are well. And I want to thank Kevin Nolan for coming in and joining the board. And without those two men, wouldn't be here right now. I mean, maybe I would be here right now, but I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. And it takes other people. You need to believe in other people, and other people need to believe in you. And, there's a lot of other people. Jake Papa has been like the best business partner to sit beside, right, and to ride the storm with, for better or for worse. And I've really learned in the last few weeks how much of a sacrifice Jake's willing to take. And so to have a business partner like Jake, who I've been working with since 2011,
one of
off
the best
and on,
guys in the game.
Was it GlobalTranz?
Emerge.
Has been to I also, Coleman, I'll thank people who've been to my house in Maui. Jake's visited me multiple times, so Jake gets a couple gold stars that a lot of people don't, because he's made the effort to go out there. And so having Jake to be able to sacrifice and suffer, because it takes sacrifice and suffering. I'm sorry, it does.
Yeah.
And then to have Dalton and Kevin believe in us, because they really did. It wasn't just a Travis thing. I remember when you and I talked, like having Jake join the team set the believability factor.
Yeah.
From wherever mine was to a much higher number. And so having Jake on there, having Dalton, having Kevin, and a lot of other people, there's more suffering and more sacrifice ahead. And I look forward to it because suffering's a privilege. So that's the last thing I got to say.
Awesome. Well,
love it.
Yeah, I mean, I know you and KJ go back. I'll go back to when we were first talking. It's been a pleasure to get to know you over the last several months. All right, I feel like people gravitate towards you, and we really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a blast.
Well, I'm gonna earn those gold stars. I'm gonna come out.
That's
and see
right.
you
Come
Maui.
out.
Yeah.
North Shore Maui. Let's go, KJ. This summer. I was talking to April about it earlier. That'd be fun.
Perfect. Well, I love you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.